Minecraft players have repeatedly asked Mojang to add dyeable or paintable wood to the game. This would enable us to get all of the colors we're used to seeing with other materials such as wool and concrete. Mojang has said that they will not be adding dyeable or paintable wood to the game. As per their feedback website, their explanation is that the current limitations are by design. Now, I'm not going to call Mojang liars, but what if I told you they already did add something comparable to dyed wood to the game? And what if I further told you that they were planning on adding more? June 23rd, 2020, Minecraft 1.16 was released. It was known as the Nether Update because it made drastic changes to the Nether dimension. New blocks, new biomes, new mobs, and new plant life, or rather, new fungi. In 2 of the new biomes, namely the Crimson and Warped Forests, you could find crimson and warped fungi as well as their huge fungi counterparts. While the small crimson and warped fungi do resemble the red and brown mushrooms found in the overworld, huge fungi are noticeably different from huge mushrooms. Huge fungi are not trees, but their stems can be turned into planks just like wood logs. This is in contrast to the huge mushrooms you find in overworld biomes like swamps and mushroom fields, where breaking the stems without Silk Touch just yields more of the respective small mushroom in Bedrock Edition, and in Java Edition you get nothing. The planks from warped fungi also happen to look a lot like what you might expect of Cyan dyed wood. For the sake of comparison, I've lined up warped warp block, warped planks, warped stem, and warped nylium above cyan concrete powder, wool, concrete, and terracotta. While Mojang hasn't given us dyeable wood per se, I argue they have given us something comparable to cyan dyed wood with the huge warped fungus. Now, you may be asking why I've included the cyan terracotta, since it doesn't really resemble anything from the warped fungus in terms of color. I have done this to remind all of us that sometimes Mojang interprets things being dyed a certain color a little differently than we might expect. And I think this understanding helps to explain what we see here in this lineup of nether warp block, crimson planks, crimson stem, and crimson nylium, as well as red concrete powder, wool, concrete, and terracotta. Just about all of the blocks here look like they belong to the same color, red, with the possible exception of the planks, which look a little closer to purple or magenta. Like cyan terracotta, I think this is just another instance of Mojang deciding to make things a little differently than we might expect. So again, while Mojang hasn't technically given us red dyed wood, I think their answer was to provide the crimson planks instead. Why would Mojang do this? Why would they give us 2 new wood types, especially wood types that would be a viable alternative to dyed wood when they said they wouldn't be adding dyed wood? Because the current limitations were by design. The obvious answer is that they wanted to make exploring the Nether more interesting for the player. After all, Mojang claims that the reason mob spawners and budding amethyst blocks can't be moved is because they want to encourage players to explore. Finding new biomes is far more interesting than seeing endless netherrack, especially if certain resources can only be found in specific biomes. And, at least for most players, it would require more exploring to locate the crimson and warped forests in the nether than it would to get red and cyan dye to use on some overworld wood planks. But the less obvious answer for why Mojang would effectively add a new plant type, fungi that function more like trees than the huge mushrooms we're used to, is that they were laying the foundation for what was to come. I firmly believe they were planning on adding more wood types to correspond to more of the dye colors, possibly all of them eventually. And to prove this, we'll move forward from June 23rd, 2020 to September 27th, 2020. That was the day that the mob vote to be held during Minecraft Live 2020 was announced. One of the mobs was Moobloom, which was essentially a mushroom that left behind yellow flowers, specifically buttercups, as it walked. What does this have to do with dyed wood? The original post announcing the mob vote said that mooblooms and bees would be able to interact, but didn't specify what that exactly meant. Think back to crimson and warped fungi. Unlike tree saplings, small crimson and warped fungi do not automatically grow into huge fungi after a certain number of game ticks. They need to be bone mealed either by a player or a dispenser to generate huge fungi. What if the way mooblooms and bees interacted resulted in a huge flower, just like bone-mealing nether fungi yields huge fungi? What if, after a moobloom left behind a buttercup and a bee subsequently pollinated it, that flower generated a huge buttercup? And what if that huge buttercup had a stem which could be turned into planks, planks that resembled yellow dyed wood, just like huge fungi produce planks that resemble cyan and red dyed wood? But that's not all. While investigating the moobloom, I learned that Minecraft Earth had another mob which was very similar to the moobloom, the moolip, which left behind pink flowers instead of yellow. If Mojang was going to add the moobloom to Minecraft, it would make sense for them to add this variant at some point too. And if they were planning to use the moobloom to add yellow dyed planks, then why wouldn't they use the same mechanic with the moolip to give us pink dyed wood? That would cover 4 of the 16 dye colors currently used in Minecraft. So what about the other 12? Do we really need brown wood? Wouldn't spruce, dark oak, or oak already have that covered? Though this could be another situation where Mojang would handle things a little differently than we might expect. However, even if we exclude brown, we would still be left with 11 colors. You could make the argument that birch is close enough to white, but I wonder if it's still a little too yellow to be considered a true replacement for white dyed planks. And if you were looking for white planks, wouldn't the stems of huge mushrooms be a more logical choice? That could explain why Mojang hasn't made the stem behavior the same on Bedrock and Java Edition. Perhaps they're waiting until they can change the stem to provide white planks. But Java Edition still recognizes the stems of huge brown mushrooms and the stems of huge red mushrooms as two different blocks, even though they don't drop anything without Silk Touch, so there's no real reason for them to be different right now. If Mojang is planning to have huge mushroom stems provide white planks, why have two functionally different blocks do the same job? And again, excluding white still leaves us with 10 dye colors. Also, is anyone else bothered by the fact that both Crimson and Warped doors have no transparent cutouts, but the trapdoors do? Meanwhile, with every door type prior to this, if a door was solid with no cutouts, the trapdoor would be solid as well. And why does the new azalea tree use the exact same logs as a regular oak? Is no one else concerned that we have nether wart block, warped wart block, but no warped wart? I think I've uncovered something I really can't fit into just one video. Brainstorming, researching, and writing this current video has led me to 4 separate but connected conclusions. The first, which I've used this video to explain, is that while Mojang won't technically add dyed wood to the game, they will be adding different colors of wood corresponding to the dye colors in the game. The second conclusion is that Mojang may be changing the crafting recipe for doors and trapdoors. I will discuss this in a future video, which will be on the end screen once I have it prepared. The third is that Minecraft will be getting an end update soon. Again, that will be in a future video, which will also be on the end screen eventually, most likely as part of a playlist. Lastly, the fourth conclusion is that Minecraft will have a plant and crops update soon. That will also go in the playlist once it's made. I've never done a video like this where I speculate about what could happen next for Minecraft, so if you enjoyed this, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel so that you can catch the other videos I have planned. Until next time, take care.